There is an oath so ancient it predates writing, yet its consequences still echo in the flesh of men who should never have been born. In the year 872, deep within the forests of Scandinavia, a warrior clan was banished from their tribe for a crime that oral tradition never clearly recorded, only whispered about. The punishment did not come by the sword, but by a pact imposed beneath the vanishing moon. The Black Moon, the moment when the sky closes and the earth belongs only to the hungry spirits. That group of exiles, known as the Ulfhednar, those who wear the wolf's skin, were given a brutal choice: die as men or survive as something else. They chose the latter. And what happened that night was not metamorphosis, it was damnation. The ritual, described in fragments of the Icelandic manuscript Volsunga Saga and collected by Sabine Baring-Gould in The Book of Werewolves, 1865, speaks of a stone circle where wolf's blood was drunk, bones were broken, and flesh was remade. But one question remains unanswered to this day, and it is that question which will guide this entire investigation. What exact oath was spoken that night to make the curse hereditary, passed down through blood, through the moon, and through rage? Because what occurred under that black moon was not merely the origin of an accursed bloodline, it was the foundation of a new species of predator. And there is a symbol carved into the stones of that ancient circle, a lunar sigil entwined with claws that will only be deciphered when we reach the heart of this mystery. The moon calls, the flesh answers, and the pact never expires. To understand the Black Moon Pact, one must first situate the warrior bloodlines that preceded ritualistic lycanthropy, and grasp that the lupine transformation was not born of chance, but of a deeply rooted spiritual and martial tradition in Northern Europe. The Ulfhednar were not the first. In both practice and symbolism, they descended from the Berserkir, the bear warriors, first mentioned in the Heimskringla, a 13th century chronicle written by Snorri Sturluson. The Berserker entered a state of ecstatic fury, known as Berserksganger, in which it was believed that the soul of the warrior temporarily merged with the spirit of a totemic animal: the bear, the boar, the wolf. Unlike the Berserkir, who operated within the tribes and were respected as sacred guardians, the Ulfhednar represented a darker, marginal, and more dangerous offshoot. They inhabited the borders between the world of men and the world of spirits, the deep forest, the frozen ravines, the clearings where no fire could be lit without drawing the attention of gods or the dead. Montague Summers in The Werewolf, 1933, describes the Ulfhednar as men who not only imitated wolves, but who ritually became wolves, abandoning the human form by will and by curse. Summers cites accounts from the 17th century Baltic chroniclers who recorded trials of men accused of voluntary lycanthropy, men who confessed, whether under torture or not, to drinking wolf's blood mixed with poisonous herbs and uttering nocturnal oaths that bound them to the lunar cycle. But these late accounts are distorted echoes of something much older. The true origin lies in exile. Between the years 850 and 900, during the Viking expansion period, various Norse tribes engaged in internal conflicts over territory, honor, and control of trade routes. A warrior clan, whose name was purposefully erased from the records, but which modern scholars refer to as the Fenrisulfur clan, in reference to the mythological wolf Fenrir, committed a ritual transgression. They desecrated an altar dedicated to Odin by spilling human blood during a sacred feast. The punishment was eternal banishment. But the clan's leader, a man named Hrafn, Raven, refused to accept the sentence. He and his warriors sought a solution at the edge of what was permitted, a pact with entities that dwelled in the forests and who, according to oral tradition, could grant strength in exchange for something irreversible. Fenri Sulfur, cursed bloodline. These spirits were called Vargur, a word in Old Norse that means both wolf and outlaw, exile. The connection is no accident. In Norse cosmology, the wolf is not merely an animal, it is a symbol of destruction, chaos, and liminality. Fenrir, the giant wolf, is bound until Ragnarok, when he will devour Odin himself. To be associated with the wolf is to be tied to inescapable fate and uncontrollable rage. And it was precisely this that Hrafn sought. But there is a taboo that crosses all traditions of lycanthropy: silver. From the earliest Greek accounts of the Lycanthropoi of Arcadia to medieval treatises on werewolves, silver appears as an apotropaic material, that is, capable of repelling, wounding, or destroying the transformed creature. What few understand is that silver acts not only as a metal, it acts as a lunar symbol. The moon, especially the Black Moon, governs the cycle of transformation. And silver, a metal associated with the moon in both alchemy and mythology, functions as a mirror that reflects the curse back upon the cursed. But why was silver chosen? And what happens when it is forged under the Black Moon? These questions will only be answered when we reach the ritual. The moon calls, the flesh answers, and the taboo exists because the curse is real. The night of the Black Moon Pact took place in a consecrated clearing, not to the gods, but to the nameless spirits that dwell in the space between life and death. According to fragments of the Volsunga saga and the accounts collected by Baring Gould, the ritual followed a tripartite structure, common to Norse warrior initiations, but with one crucial difference: it was not reversible. The first stage was separation. Hrafn and his warriors, 13 men in total, a deliberate number. For 13 is the number of betrayal and exclusion in Norse numerology, stripped themselves of all marks of humanity: clothes, weapons, names. Each one received a new name in a tongue that was not human: guttural, scratched sounds that mimicked howls. These names were never recorded because they cannot be written. They are pronounced only through the transformed throat. The second stage was liturgical hematophagy. In the center of the circle, a living wolf was captured. Not hunted, but captured, because the animal had to be conscious and in a state of panic. Its throat was cut, and the blood was collected in a human skull. Each warrior drank. Not a sip. They drank until they vomited, and then drank again. The goal was not to nourish the body, but to contaminate the blood. Hematophagy, the ritual ingestion of blood, appears in several esoteric traditions as a method of essence transfer. To drink the blood of something is to absorb its soul, its strength, its curse. In the case of the Ulfhednar, the wolf's blood carried the spirit of the Vargur, and that spirit had to be forced to inhabit human flesh. But blood alone was not enough. The third stage was the oath under the Black Moon. The Black Moon, the moment when the moon is not visible in the sky, the interval between the end of one lunar cycle and the beginning of another, is considered, in pagan and occult traditions, the time of greatest vulnerability and greatest power. It is when the portals between worlds are open, but also when no divine protection is available. Hrafn raised a silver blade, not just any silver, but silver beaten during a previous black moon, consecrated with binding runes, and cut his own palm. Each warrior did the same, human blood mixed with wolf's blood on the earth. And then Hrafn spoke the oath. The full text of the oath did not survive, but fragments were preserved in a 14th century Icelandic folk ballad, collected and translated by scholars of Scandinavian folklore. The approximate version, in English, would be, "Under the moon that does not exist, by the blood that does not belong, I undo what I was. Let the flesh obey the spirit. Let the spirit obey the moon. Let the moon call us to the end of the blood." The final phrase, "to the end of the blood," is crucial. The oath did not affect only the 13 warriors. It became hereditary. Every child born of those men would carry the curse in their blood, and each black moon would be a call they could not ignore. But there is one object we have only briefly mentioned so far: the silver blade. It was not an ordinary weapon. It was a fibula, a brooch used to fasten cloaks and mantles, reforged into a blade, engraved with a sigil, combining lunar runes and entwined wolf claws. This object had a dual function. It served to seal the pact, but also to break it, if one knew how. And this is where the taboo of silver takes on terrible dimensions. Silver, when forged under the black moon and consecrated with blood, becomes both the key and the chain. It can wound the werewolf because it carries the same essence that created it. It is a mirror, a physical memory of the night when the flesh was betrayed. Montague Summers recounts a documented case from 1692 in Livonia, modern-day Latvia, of a man tried for lycanthropy who confessed to owning a silver blade inherited from his grandfather, which burned in his hands during the full moon and forced him to run naked through the forests. When the blade was confiscated and melted down, the man claimed the compulsion disappeared, but he died 3 days later of unknown causes. Transformation is not liberation, it is condemnation. And the ritual of the Black Moon Pact did not grant power. It granted eternal imprisonment to the lunar cycle, to hunger, to involuntary metamorphosis. The moon calls, the flesh responds, and the totemic object holds the secret to undoing what never should have been done. What happens to a human body when it is forced to obey a non-human spirit? What happens when flesh is rewritten, not by evolution, but by curse? The consequences of the Black Moon Pact were not immediate. In the first days after the ritual, Rafin's 13 warriors appeared normal, exhausted, feverish, but alive. It was only during the first black moon to follow, 29 days later, that the metamorphosis began. And it was not a mythical, romanticized transformation. It was agony. The accounts preserved in ballads and chronicles describe the process as lunar stigma bore, mark of the moon, a term used by medieval Christian chroniclers to describe lycanthropy as a spiritual illness. But the symptoms were physical, brutal, and irreversible. The first sign was hematodipsia, a thirst for blood. Not hunger, thirst. The Ulfhetnar reported feeling their throats burn, as if they had swallowed live coals, and only fresh blood could soothe the pain. Unlike vampires, who in European tradition develop hematophagy as a metabolic necessity, werewolves develop hematodipsia as a psychological compulsion. Blood does not feed them, it calms them. It is a temporary anchor to humanity. Without it, the transformation becomes uncontrollable. The second sign was lunar hypersensitivity. During the black moon and on the nights surrounding it, the Ulfhetnar would feel their skin burn, their bones ache, their muscles contract involuntarily. Sabine Baring-Gould, Endhorn. The Book of Werewolves cites the case of a French peasant tried in 1573 who claimed, "The moon pulls me like a tide, and my body obeys even when my mind screams to stop." The moon is not merely a trigger, it is a physical, gravitational force acting upon cursed blood as it acts upon the oceans. And when the black moon comes, resistance is impossible. The third and most terrifying sign was the lupine metamorphosis itself. Contrary to Hollywood iconography, the transformation was neither instantaneous nor painless. Chroniclers who witnessed the executions of alleged werewolves describe seizures that lasted for hours, bones breaking and reshaping, skin tearing open to make way for thick, dark fur. The jaw extended forward, the teeth lengthened, the spine arched. But, and this is crucial, the mind remained partially human. The transformed werewolf is not a mindless animal. It is a creature trapped between two states, human memory and lupine instinct. It recognizes faces. It feels guilt. And that makes the curse even worse. After the first transformation, the Ulfhednar attempted to return to society. They were not welcomed. The Norse tribes recognized them by their scent. Chroniclers speak of a stench of rotting earth and old blood that marked the cursed, and they were expelled once again. Some were hunted. Others fled east into the forests of Russia and the Balkans, where the werewolf tradition merged with other cursed lineages, such as the Greek Vrikolakas and the Slavic Volkodlak. But the curse was hereditary. Every child born of a Ulfhednar carried the lunar stigma in their blood. Some manifested the full transformation. Others lived with lesser symptoms: uncontrollable rage, mild hematodipsia, sleepwalking during the Black Moon. Montague Summers documents cases across Eastern Europe, from the 12th to the 18th century, of entire families tried for hereditary lycanthropy. In 1640, in Poland, a family of 9 was executed after neighbors witnessed nighttime transformations and attacks on livestock. The patriarch confessed that his great-grandfather had been an exiled Norse warrior. The bloodline was inescapable, and it was within this context that the folklore of apotropaics arose, objects and substances capable of repelling or harming werewolves. Silver, as previously mentioned, was the most powerful, but others existed. Aconite, also called wolfsbane, vervain, consecrated salt, crucifixes. But here comes a partial revelation of Loop 1, the symbol mentioned in the hook. The sigil carved into the stone circle where the pact was made, wolf claws entwined with lunar runes, was not merely decorative. It was a map. Each claw represented a bloodline descended from the 13 original warriors. Each rune represented a specific black moon under which the curse could be broken. But the secret of how to read this map was lost when Hrafn died, under mysterious circumstances, only 3 years after the ritual. It is said he was killed by his own silver blade, the reforged fibula, but no one knows for certain who wielded it. And here, we arrive at the true cost of the curse. The Ulfhednar were not monsters by choice. They were victims of a desperate pact made by men who chose eternal damnation over disappearance. They paid with flesh, with blood, with sanity, and their bloodlines still pay. The moon calls, the flesh responds, and the cost was never negotiable. Now, at last, we can answer the question that opened this investigation. What exact oath was spoken under the Black Moon that caused the curse to become hereditary, passed down through blood, through the moon, and through rage? The answer lies in the nature of the ritual itself. The Black Moon Pact was not an agreement with gods or demons. It was an agreement with the very structure of time and flesh. When Hrafn and his warriors drank the wolf's blood and spoke the oath, they did not invoke any external entity. They rewrote their own essence, forcing the spirit of the Vargar, wolf, exile, destroyer, to permanently inhabit their blood. And they did this at the only moment such rewriting was possible: during the Black Moon. When the lunar cycle is suspended, when time folds in on itself. The oath was not a plea, it was a declaration. Let the flesh obey the spirit. Let the spirit obey the moon. Let the moon call us to the end of the blood. These words did not create a curse. They created a new natural law, applicable only to those who spoke the oath, and to all who descended from them. Hereditary lycanthropy is not a disease. It is a prone for spiritual genetic rewrite. And the symbol carved into the stone circle, claws entwined with runes, is the key to undoing that law. Each claw represents a bloodline. Each rune represents a specific black moon under which the curse can be broken. To break the curse of a lineage, one would have to identify the rune that corresponds to it, wait for the correct black moon, and use the original silver blade, the reforged fibula, to sever the bond. But here's the problem. The original fibula is missing. After Hrafn's death, it was buried with him, in a location never revealed. Some legends say it lies in a tomb in the mountains of Norway. Others claim it was cast into the sea. Still others say it was stolen by werewolf hunters, and now lies forgotten in a European museum, catalogued as a Viking brooch of unknown use. This explains the taboo of silver. Silver is not lethal to werewolves due to some general chemical or magical property. It is lethal because it carries the memory of the pact. Every silver blade that wounds a werewolf is, symbolically, reenacting the moment the fibula sealed the oath. It is a traumatic repetition. And that is why werewolves wounded by silver suffer not only physical pain, but not existential pain. The unconscious remembrance of the night their bloodline was condemned. But there is another revelation, even more disturbing. Loop 2. The taboo we previously mentioned, without full explanation. Silver beaten at the rise of the new moon. This phrase appears in the 17th century werewolf hunter manuscripts, but its origin is older. It refers to the only method of creating a blade capable of killing a werewolf permanently. Forge the silver. During the Black Moon. At the exact moment the lunar cycle restarts, and consecrated with wolf's blood mixed with aconite. This blade does not merely wound, it undoes. It reverses the rewriting done by the pact. And that is why the Ulfhednar and all their descendant bloodlines fear silver above all else. It is not death they fear. It is erasure. And now, the two quotes we promised, from two voices who understood the curse of transformation better than any medieval chronicler. Anne Rice, in Interview with the Vampire, wrote, "To be immortal is to be eternally alone." Rice spoke of vampires, but the phrase applies perfectly to hereditary werewolves. They do not die. The curse endures, and with each generation, the loneliness deepens, because humanity slips further away. Stephen King, in Cycle of the Werewolf, wrote, "The wolf knows what you've done." King captured the essence of lupine guilt. The transformed werewolf does not forget. He remembers every attack, every victim, every night the moon forced him to betray his own humanity. And that memory is the true curse. So, what remains? The Black Moon Pact endures. The descendant bloodlines of the Ulfhednar still exist, scattered across Europe, Russia, the Americas. Most have no idea they carry the lunar stigma in their blood. Some find out only when the first transformation occurs, usually in adolescence during a black moon. There is no known cure, only management, only survival. But there are signs. Families who avoid silver, people who disappear during the black moon, rural communities that speak of wolves too large to be wolves, and there are objects. Fibulas, blades, rings etched with lunar runes, appearing in antique markets, private collections, museums. Each one could be a fragment of the original pact. Each one could be a key or a chain. The moon calls, the flesh responds, and the legacy of the Black Moon Pact never ended. It merely transformed. But there is one question we haven't yet asked, and it may be the most important of all. If the Black Moon Pact created hereditary lycanthropy among the Norse Ulfhednar, what happened to the other bloodlines? Because werewolves are not exclusive to Scandinavia. They appear in ancient Greece, in the medieval Balkans, in the 16th century France, in colonial America. Every culture has its own name. Lycanthropos, Volkodlak, Lupgaru, Rugaru. And every one of these traditions speaks of an original pact, a ritual, a night when the moon disappeared and something was sealed in blood. Could it be that the Black Moon Pact was not the first, nor the only one? There are fragmentary records of an earlier event said to have occurred in Thessaly in ancient Greece during the 4th century BCE. It involved a cult devoted to Hecate, goddess of the moon and of crossroads. This cult is believed to have performed a similar ritual, but with one crucial difference. Instead of wolf's blood, they used the blood of a wild dog mixed with belladonna. And the descendants of that ritual may have migrated north into the forests of Central Europe, eventually merging with Norse bloodlines. If that is true, it means lycanthropy does not have a single origin. It has many. And each one is tied to a specific pact, a specific black moon, and a specific totemic object. The silver fibula of the Ulfhednar is only one of many lost keys. So if you live in a region where werewolf legends are ancient, where stories speak of wolves that walk like men or cursed families, pay attention to the symbols. Pay attention to the objects, because they're still out there, waiting. If you've ever come across, in your town, your family, a museum, or an antique market, an item engraved with intertwined claws and lunar symbols, runes, crescents, circles, leave a comment. Describe the symbol. Tell us where you saw it. Because every symbol is a clue. Every object is a fragment of a pact that hasn't ended. And if you are a descendant of a cursed bloodline, there might still be time to find the key. If you enjoyed this investigation, leave a like and subscribe to the Arc of Mysteries channel. Our next episode will uncover something even darker: the Crimson Bloodline and the Blood Decree in the Balkans. The vampiric order that vowed to exterminate the werewolves, and the secret treaty that nearly destroyed both species. Because in the world of night-born creatures, blood doesn't just promise, it collects, and the debt never expires. The moon calls, the flesh responds, and the mystery continues.